She tells him to stop popping out of nowhere like that. He just says he wants to know more about magic. He looked through books and didn't find anything. She's impressed that he can read as always and keeps thinking he's more interesting than she expected. The protagonist asks how her grandfather is doing, and she replies that unfortunately, he won't be able to talk right now because he's sleeping like a log. Blushing, she asks him to come back tomorrow, and he says that's fine. But as he's leaving, she wants to know why he's so set on talking to her grandfather. It seemed like that was his goal from the very beginning. He turns around and answers that he's searching for the prism, which is actually that rainbow the old lady mentioned, right? But he figures it's the same thing anyway. 4:30 in the afternoon, and all I can think is that Niles is a liar. He told the protagonist that Sector 49 was all the same, but clearly everyone's living peacefully in some fancy place. Now Ray's watching another person from Philip's list of names. A man in his 30s or 40s who leaves at 7 and comes back at 7 in the evening. He always shows up with a basket full of fruit, and no one knows where it comes from. Even if these don't seem like big leads, Ray needs to dig up as much information as possible about this Joni. Turns out this kid is actually the one bringing him food. The moment Ray notices the name written on it, he says he never ordered any food. The boy insists it's on the house and already knows he must be Hunter, someone kids look up to like a hero. Once Ray realizes the boy has already figured him out, he decides it's time to ask something. Joni, all excited, even offers to hand over the warehouse password, which confuses Ray a bit, but his real question is about how accurate this man's daily routine really is. Johnny explains that he's not the man Ray's looking for, the one with the basket is, and that the schedules written down are spot on. That guy is so precise with his time that people practically use him like a clock. Suddenly, someone yells for Joni to get back to work, and the boy bolts off immediately. It was 6 in the evening, so just one more hour until the target appeared. Ray decides to eat and wait it out. But then his expression shifts when he glances to the side and spots the man with the hat arriving. Just like the monocle guy, he also had strange rings circling around his mana flow. In his mind, Ray thanks Joni for the food and slips away, heading toward where this man lives. He plans to take advantage of the time while the man's out to gather as much information as possible. Nervous, but with no way to back down, he feels an overwhelming surge of mana leaking out through the keyhole. He pushes the door open. Inside, though, it just looks like a regular home. He forces himself to stay focused. Now isn't the time to get distracted. The priority is collecting information about mages. In the trash, he finds a pile of crumpled papers. When he smooths one out, it's filled with scribbles and notes. One part mentions number 66, which he's been curious about. That instantly reminds him it's the same number of orphans Kendrick said someone was interested in. Ray starts thinking this man might be connected to that Merkard group the boy mentioned. But judging from the contents of the letter, this guy was actually kicked out of the organization. Then Ray feels something strange coming from a jar. When he opens it, he finds gems radiating mana. It's the same type of jewel in the ring Kendrick wears. It's mana from the air, but unlike natural mana, this kind gets drawn in much more smoothly. He wonders what would happen if he combined his own mana with something like this. At that moment, a flame bursts in his hand, the strongest he's ever created. Normally, it would take him more effort and more time, but this time it came so easily. Then footsteps echo down the stairs. He quickly clenches his fist, hiding the flame just as the man with the hat comes back in, grumbling that he can't believe he forgot his wallet, calling himself dumber every day. He mutters that this is why the organization abandoned him. Apparently, he talks to himself a lot, and then mentions to Walter not to worry. Once he finishes this job, he'll return to the group. As he climbs the stairs again, Ray thinks the man is leaving, but suddenly, the man halts and says he feels like he needs something else from this place. He turns, staring straight at the protagonist, and says he needs rat poison. Ray draws his knife as the man remarks that he knew someone was hiding there. He goes in for a slash, and damn, it looks like he actually landed it, because the guy had to fall back. He slammed his hand against the wall in frustration, demanding to know who Ray was, asking if he was that cursed assassin from the organization, and if they were underestimating him so much that they'd send a child. He had no idea how the kid even got the door open, but Ray just kept advancing on him. The protagonist's intention was clear: defeat this man and force him to spill everything he knew, since things had come to this point. But the guy blocked Ray's knife with his bare hand, telling him to stop thinking he could beat an adult with just a blade. Still, Ray pulled with all of his strength, and the man was taken aback by how strong the boy was. He stepped back again and realized this man had used that same strange mana Kendrick had used. It must have been what kept his hand from getting sliced. The guy then powered up, saying he had been going easy because Ray was just a kid. Now, though, charged forward, warning that Ray's face was about to be ripped apart. Ray, however, was more curious. If that spell the man just used, maybe he could use it too. Suddenly, the man launched another attack and blood sprayed. To everyone's shock, Ray had copied the spell, but his version seemed more natural, more in tune with the world itself. He had memorized the exact combination of colors the stone produced and repeated it perfectly. The man kept striking, demanding to know how this kid had pulled off metallization, a technique he himself had invented. He swung with a horizontal slash, but Ray ducked under it, dodged cleanly, and countered with a cut. Now bleeding, the man's knee was torn up and disbelief filled his eyes. He was certain of it now. This boy had been sent by the boss himself. Ray pinned him by the hand against the wall and told him he had to disguise his voice so nobody would figure out who he really was. But the man scoffed. White hair, gray eyes, everyone already knew his identity. Walter admitted he never imagined the infamous magic-stealing assassin would be so young. Ray, though, was only thinking about how hard it was to drag information out of people like this. Maybe the best option was simply to kill him right there. But then Walter declared he had no choice left. He was going to burn his own life away if that's what it took to kill the boy and prove his worth to the leader. Out of nowhere, he was engulfed by a massive pillar of flames, his body consumed by fire. He shouted for Ray to tell the boss that the Blood Eye would be paying a visit soon, assuming the kid survived this. At that moment, he promised the boss would regret ever abandoning someone like him. As he advanced, Ray noticed the mana rings circling his core were spinning at a dangerous speed. Mana was exploding through his veins, bursting from his blood vessels. It was getting lethal. The man raised his arms high, declaring that he knew Ray must be after the red bloodstone. But he wasn't going to let that happen, and he hurled a fireball straight at him. Ray brought both arms together, shaping a swirl of colors into a barrier, and somehow it held. The man was stunned that an assassin could summon a defensive spell of that caliber. Still, he kept hammering at it with more attacks, insisting that Ray's shield would break first. The problem for Ray was that he couldn't get close to someone whose entire body was engulfed in flames. He'd be burned alive. Suddenly, his eyes widened as the man raised his arm and summoned a colossal pillar of fire, daring Ray to block this one. Ray knew it was impossible to withstand that with just a barrier. But then the man noticed something odd, droplets of water forming all around him. He demanded to know how Ray was using two primary elements at the same time. Ray surged forward with a punch just as the man demanded an explanation for why an assassin was suddenly wielding water magic. At that moment, Ray unleashed a torrent and the man's flames were snuffed out completely. The next instant, Ray staggered outside. Exhausted, blood dripping from his nose, he had clearly pushed himself to his absolute limit. His mind was clouded, overwhelmed, but even then, he was left stunned at just how powerful that magic from those stones really was. The mana flowed calmly, everything blending together much faster. This thing was definitely powerful. He had no idea how strong it must be to have those rings around the circle. At this pace, it was more than clear he couldn't defeat that guy with a monocle, the one covered in rings with glowing spheres. Still, with enough time, he would grow stronger and uncover everything he needed. He figured something bad could happen, and that's why he stole a few of those little stones when he was hiding behind the door. The next morning, he arrived at Veronica's library. She was all smiles, welcoming him in while he carried that aura around. She immediately asked where his coat was, and he told her he got rid of it. After all, if he kept walking around in the same clothes he wore when he was attacked, it would only make him look more suspicious. Veronica then said she had spoken with her grandfather about how the boy had used magic to help everyone. And on top of that, she mentioned he was searching for the prism. The protagonist, however, noticed a couple of children peeking at him from one of the rooms. The door shut, and Veronica explained they were her siblings taken in by her grandfather from an orphanage. Their names were Molta and Jolfine. He asked if her grandfather had taken those kids in to teach them magic, and she grew a little flustered, wanting to know how he had figured that out already. He answered simply that there couldn't really be another reason. She added that she herself had learned magic from her grandfather. Somewhat awkwardly, she admitted she understood, and together they reached the door where her grandfather was waiting. She stepped inside first, introducing the boy as the one who had helped her. The old man was standing there, smoke swirling around him, and he told Veronica to leave the room for a moment. She did, and then the elder turned to Ray, saying he was deeply grateful. He had heard that Ray had helped Veronica deal with those children, something he himself should have done but hadn't been in the best condition to manage. Ray replied that it hadn't been difficult, though his attention was fixed on the 4 mana rings the man carried. Beyond that, he could sense emotions: anger, comfort, excitement, shame, indifference, regret. Too many at once for him to believe, and yet they didn't seem to be just drifting feelings. They looked like they were part of the man himself, not just a representation. Ray was still trying to process it all when the old man asked what exactly he was looking to discover. Ray answered that he had been searching for the mage. The elder mentioned that Veronica had told him Ray was a gifted boy. The protagonist said he had no idea if he was gifted or not, and then the old man asked if his name was Ray. He guessed Ray must be from somewhere outside this place. Ray stayed silent, and the man remarked that it must have been a long story. Then he proposed a deal. They would play a game, and the loser of each round would have to answer one question. Ray was caught off guard by the mana pulsing around them, and when the elder noticed his reaction, he said the boy's senses really were sharp. He asked if Ray could feel the mana flowing between them. Ray not only felt it, he could see it. The old man explained that each magic came from a different element, and their combinations created new ones. Between them right now was an element known as maintenance. It was something necessary to keep homeostasis stable without being shaken by outside forces. For clarity, homeostasis is the ability of an organism to keep its internal state balanced. Yes, I'm brilliant. I never needed Google to know that. Ray then asked about another element he noticed nearby, and the elder was surprised, not even sure if Ray could really sense both. Ray said yes, he was seeing it clearly, a shade of gray and another, darker gray.